Imagine being handcuffed on your own property by an HOA that thought they could control everything, only for them to realize too late that the criminal they just tried to arrest was the same judge who could dissolve their entire board. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments what country you're watching this video from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more real-life HOA and Karen justice stories. When I bought my house, I wasn't just looking for peace and quiet. I was looking for a place to settle after years of presiding over some of the most complicated property disputes in the county. I was a judge, though I kept that part quiet around my new neighbors. I wanted to be seen as just another resident, not someone with authority or influence. The community was beautiful. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and a lake view that seemed like something out of a postcard. But beneath that calm exterior, something toxic was brewing. The HOA, led by a woman named Karen, ran the neighborhood like a small dictatorship. She had a clipboard in one hand and a camera phone in the other, always looking for something to complain about. At first, I stayed out of their way. I paid my dues, followed the basic rules, and kept my property well maintained. But the first sign of trouble came when I started a small construction project on the back of my lot, a simple deck extension that required no HOA approval, as confirmed by the county's building department. Karen, however, saw it differently. Within 2 days, I received 3 violation notices on my door, all claiming unauthorized structural modification. The letters came with fines that grew larger every week. I ignored them because, legally, the HOA had no jurisdiction over my project. I wasn't even technically inside their boundary line. Weeks later, I came home from work to find a group of men in safety vests walking across my backyard, inspecting my property like they owned it. They said they were sent by the HOA. When I asked for documentation, they refused to show any. They walked off my land after taking pictures, muttering something about reporting me for trespassing. I didn't think much of it until one Saturday morning when I returned from a grocery trip and found a sheriff's cruiser parked in my driveway. 2 deputies approached, saying they had received a complaint from the HOA claiming that I was trespassing on community land and had refused to leave. It was almost laughable. The land they were referring to was legally mine, confirmed by county records and the purchase deed. But instead of arguing, I calmly handed the deputies a copy of my property documents. They looked embarrassed, but explained that the HOA president was adamant I was in violation. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a power play. The HOA wanted control over my land because it bordered a section they planned to convert into a shared walking path. My property was in their way. Later that evening, Karen and 2 board members showed up at my front door, warning that continued trespassing would result in my arrest and property seizure. I simply thanked them for stopping by, closed the door, and decided it was time to stop playing nice. The next day, I filed a formal legal complaint against the HOA for harassment, defamation, and unauthorized entry. I did it anonymously through the county's legal portal, the same one that reports HOA abuses and misconduct. Within a week, a state investigator reached out asking for details. Meanwhile, the HOA doubled down. They called an emergency board meeting and voted to fine me $10,000 for illegal construction and repeated violations. They even hired a private security firm to patrol the neighborhood and monitor access to my property line. Then came the breaking point. I received a letter stating that the HOA had filed for a restraining order against me in municipal court. According to the complaint, I had threatened the safety of the HOA board by refusing compliance. That's when I decided to handle this matter personally. The court date was set for 2 weeks later. When Karen and her entourage arrived, they were confident, smug, and ready to gloat. They didn't realize that the judge presiding over their case was me. As a matter of protocol, I normally wouldn't hear a case involving myself, but since their filing listed me incorrectly and came through a general docket, it landed in my courtroom before anyone noticed. I could have recused myself, but instead I used that moment to make something clear. I opened the case and calmly laid out the facts. Their restraining order was invalid. Their jurisdiction did not extend to my property. Their repeated fines and trespassing were illegal. And most importantly, their actions were a textbook case of HOA abuse of power. The color drained from their faces as they realized who I was. The same homeowner they'd tried to bully was the county's senior property law judge, and every violation they had issued had just become evidence in a legal proceeding. The courtroom fell silent as I officially dismissed their restraining order and opened a review into their HOA operations. Within 2 weeks, investigators found numerous violations: misused funds, unauthorized fines, and even forged signatures on community approvals. The HOA was dissolved by court order. Karen was removed from her position, fined heavily, and barred from serving on any HOA board for life. The remaining funds in the HOA's account were returned to residents, and a new community management system was established, one based on actual law, not personal vendettas. In the months that followed, the neighborhood became peaceful again. People began planting gardens, repainting homes, and hosting barbecues without fear of fines. For the first time in years, neighbors talked to each other instead of spying on one another. I never boasted about what happened. Most residents still don't know I was the judge behind the case. But occasionally, when I see Karen driving by in silence, I can't help but think about how close she came to losing everything over her obsession with control. And to anyone dealing with an abusive HOA, remember this: power built on intimidation always collapses when faced with truth and law.